Staring at the Dungeon Master's Guide and feeling a little overwhelmed? Got a killer idea for a D&D campaign, but you freeze up whenever it's time to actually build that world? You're holding this giant heavy book full of rules and charts, and it feels like you need a PhD in fantasy literature just to get started. Don't worry, we've all been there. That analysis paralysis is a real thing, and the number one reason brilliant campaign ideas actually end up getting put on the shelf.
It's that little voice in your head whispering, but what if my players go somewhere I haven't planned? Or what if my story isn't as epic as the ones I see online? Or, oh god, what if I mess up a rule? That pressure to create a massive Tolkien-esque world from day one, it's a trap. And here's the secret the pros know. You don't need to. In fact, you really shouldn't.
In this video, we're going to show you how to get from a simple concept to a ready-play campaign in just a few totally manageable steps. We're cutting through the noise and giving you a clear, actionable framework. By the end of this, you'll have everything you need to run your first session, including your very own custom-made monsters.
We're here to give you permission to start small, think local, and build your world one session at a time, right alongside your players. Forget about mapping continents. Today we're just building an adventure. So grab a notebook and let's get started.
Alright, let's do this. The absolute first thing that you're going to need is a campaign premise. Don't panic. This isn't a 100-page novel. Think of the premise as your campaign's elevator pitch. It's one paragraph, maybe two, that nails down your game and what it's all about. It's your North Star. It just needs to answer three simple questions. Who are the characters? What are they doing? And why? So why is this so important? Because it actually stops you from creating what I like to call never-ending adventure soup. It's a campaign that just aimlessly drifts from one random concept to another, and a strong premise can actually give your game a central conflict. It sets a theme, and it helps your players make characters that actually fit. Let's use a real-world example. Here's the premise that I wrote for a campaign. The players are adventurers on a rugged, untamed frontier of the Silverwood Expanse. The brand new village of Oakhaven is offering a land and a title to anyone brave enough to help it survive. The problem here? The wilderness is teeming with unnaturally large and aggressive beasts. The village needs hunters to call them and gather resources. This campaign will be about gritty survival, exploration, and intense combat as the party hunts massive creatures, with the ultimate goal of tracking down and defeating an abyssal behir that's corrupting the entire region. This campaign, it answers all those questions, and it's relatively simple. So let's break it all down. Who are these characters? Well, they're adventurers, pioneers, monster hunters. This immediately tells players what kind of heroes will thrive here. What will they be doing? Hunting huge monsters, of course, exploring a dangerous wilderness and helping a village grow. This sets a clear expectation for the game's activities. Why are they doing it? Well, they're doing it for land, a title, and the survival of a community, and, stopping a giant evil monster. Yeah, exactly. So this premise immediately tells you what pillars of play we're focusing on. The player's handbook talks about exploration, social interaction, and combat. Our example is heavy on exploration and combat. It even hints at house rules I might even use, like variant encumbrance or gritty survival stuff, which I'd bring up with my players actually during session 0. So how do you make your own? Start with a genre you love. This is a political thriller, a gritty horror story, or is it a high fantasy epic? Maybe your premise is this. The characters are an elite crew in a thieves guild, operating in a city that's choked by corrupt nobles. They'll pull daring heists and navigate deadly social circles. Try to stay one step ahead of the city guard, all while a rival guild tries to wipe them off the map. That one just screams social interaction and stealth, with explosive bursts of combat. It's a totally different tone here. The most important thing is to write something that excites you. If you're not passionate about it, your players aren't going to be passionate about it either. And here's maybe the most crucial advice for a new DM. Start local. Seriously, don't worry about the whole world. You don't need to know the king's name or the history of the continent next door. All you need to know is the small area where your first adventure happens. I recommend sketching a small map. Simple 7 by 10 hex grid is perfect for this. Each hex, it can be about 6 miles, a good day's travel. On this map, plop down your starting town. We'll get to that in a minute, and maybe 2 or 3 other interesting landmarks. A creepy overgrown ruin, a mysterious glowing cave, a rival goblin camp, and that's about all you really need. This little region is your sandbox. It's where you're going to play. You've created a space with clear options for adventuring without overwhelming anyone. You're not building an entire world here. You're building a neighborhood, and the rest of the map is just a kind of a here be dragons for now, and you can fill it in as you go. So your first mission here, take about 15 minutes and write one paragraph. Just a one paragraph premise. Who, what, why. Then sketch a tiny map with a town and a few points of interest. That's step 1. You've already laid down the foundation for your entire campaign now.
So Tyler's got you thinking about the what of your campaign. Now it's time to go for the who, and I don't just mean the monsters. I mean your players. This brings us to the single most important meeting you'll have, Session 0. If the premise is your foundation, Session 0 is the blueprint everyone agrees on before you start building. It's a prep meeting that happens before you play for real. The goal is to get everyone on the same page about expectations, rules, and characters. Skipping this is like trying to build a house with 5 different contractors who all have different blueprints. It's one-way ticket to chaos. So, what do you actually do in Session 0? Let's break that down. First, pitch your campaign and talk expectations. This is where you unveil that awesome premise you wrote. Read it out loud, get them hyped, but this is a conversation, not a lecture. Ask them what they think. Does a gritty survival game sound fun? Are they secretly hoping for more political backstabbing? Now is the time to find out if the game you want to run is the game that they want to play. It's way better to adjust to now than 3 sessions in, and when you realize half the party hates tracking rations, and the other half just wants to open a tavern. Or in my case, I just like dungeon delving.
Yeah.
This is also where you nail down the tone. Are we telling a grim, serious story, or is this more of a lighthearted, heroic romp? Getting this straight prevents the player with a brooding, tragic hero from clashing with the player who made a kleptomaniac gnome bard who only communicates through interpretive dance. That would actually be a really cool character I would love to play with someone like that. Second, we need to establish the rules of the game. This is the nuts and bolts part. You need to be clear about what rules you're using, standard D&D 5e, any optional or homebrew stuff. For Tyler's survival game, you'd say, hey guys, I'm thinking of using the variant encumbrance rule, so carrying capacity will really matter. You also need to decide how you're going to make the characters. Standard array, point buy, rolling for stats. For new groups, I really recommend point buy or standard array. I'm a newbie myself, so that helps quite a bit. It keeps all the characters balanced and on a level playing field. Also, yeah. Also, talk about character death. Is it a constant threat or a rare story-defining moment? Setting these expectations now saves you from arguments later, which we have had.
I usually have it as the Jumanji rule. Boop, 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 and then they fall from the sky.
That's funny. Oh, gosh. In my case, you need that rule.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
You slaughter your entire party.
I have stories. I don't know if we'll get to on this video, but I do have stories. Third, the social contract and safety tools. Okay, so this is probably the most important part of Session 0. D&D is a social game. You need to set some ground rules so everyone feels safe and respected. This is where you talk about what I call lines and veils. Lines are hard set boundaries, topics that are totally off limits. This could be anything from graphic torture to harm against children or specific phobias like spiders. Veils are topics that can exist in the story but will fade to black instead of describing them in detail. This chat can feel a bit awkward, but it is important. Oh my gosh, it's so important. Because you don't know what people have for phobias or anything like that, right? So it's crucial for building trust. This creates a space where people can relax and have fun without worrying about what they're going to stumble into. Something genuinely upsetting, something that might trigger them. A happy table is one where everyone feels heard. Fourth, you want to create characters together. Once you're all on the same page, it's time for the fun part. Making your characters, which I take forever on.
Oh, yeah.
I can't recommend this enough. Have your players build their characters together right there in session 0. This is where the magic starts. Instead of 5 lone wolves who all happen to show up at the same tavern, you get a party with built-in connections. Maybe the fighter and the rogue grew up in the same orphanage. Maybe the wizard was once the cleric's mentor. Ask them questions. How do you two know each other? What event brought you both to Oakhaven? This immediately creates a team. It gives them shared history, which is huge. It's a gift for you as a DM. It does half your storytelling work for you. And while they're doing that, you can start sketching out what I call NPC husks. These are just simple frameworks. Jot down a quirk, a motivation, a relationship. For instance, Ilara is a village elder. Motivation, she protects Oakhaven at all costs. And a quirk, she constantly whittles small wooden animals. There's no backstory needed, and it just is a basic seed that you can grow later on. A good session 0 can take a few hours, but it's an investment that pays off big time. It aligns your group, it builds trust, it makes a solid foundation for the epic story you're about to tell. So before you roll a single die, get your friends together and have the talk.
So you've got your premise down now, and you've had session 0. Your players have characters who actually know each other. Amazing. Now, where does the story kick off? It's time to build your starter town and craft the first adventure. And just like before, the trick to starting all this is small and focused. Let's go back to our frontier town of Oakhaven. You do not actually need to map out every building and write a biography for every single citizen. That's a classic rookie mistake that actually just leads to straight out burnout. You only need enough to make the town feel real and ready to launch that first quest. All it takes is a few key ingredients. First, you need a central hub. This is usually an inner tavern. It's a cliche for a reason, and it's a reason that it works. It's a natural spot for adventurers to meet, hear rumors, and find work. Give it a memorable name like the Axe and Hearth. Create one key NPC, the innkeeper. Let's call her Mila, and give her a simple motivation. Wants her in to be the heart of the community. And then, like Ashley said, you need a quirk. Has a terrible memory for names. She's your main source of local gossip.
This reminds me of Skyrim, when you go into the innkeeper and you ask them their stories.
Yeah, Skyrim uses it. And Skyrim uses it because, again, it's a cliche that works amazingly. Second, you need 3 other key NPCs. A good model is to think about who holds power or provides a key service. You could have the political figure. Ilara, the village elder from before, she's your quest giver. She has the authority and she needs the party's help. Then you need the economic figure. A blacksmith or a general store owner can help here, can actually work here. Let's say it's a grizzled dwarf named Bolrin Ironhand. He actually sells basic gear, but always complains about the lack of good ore. He's where the party spends their cash. And then you have your spiritual figure. There's a priest, a hermit, maybe a hedge wizard. This could be a young acolyte named Lyra who actually tends a small shrine. She's a source for healing or some cryptic advice. For each of these 4 NPCs, innkeeper, elder, blacksmith, priest, give them one goal and one problem. For instance, Borin the blacksmith, his goal is to craft a masterwork weapon. But his problem here is that giant monsters keep causing cave-ins at the mine. boom, suddenly these aren't just shopkeepers, they're walking plot hooks.
It is literally like Skyrim, which
Yeah.
is one of my favorite games.
Yeah, exactly.
So popular.
Yeah, these are side quests that you could be giving.
Quest givers.
Yeah, exactly. Walking quest givers. But a third one is a bounty board. This is your best friend here, creating the side quests and giving your players choices on a literal or metaphorical board in the middle of town or even in your living room. Post 2 or 3 simple problems. Help wanted, goblin stole my prize-winning pig, or reward for clearing the giant spiders out of the old watchtower. These are perfect one-shot adventures. And just like that, you have a living town. It has a place to rest, people to talk to, and problems to solve, most importantly. And you probably spent less than an hour on it. Now, let's use that town to build your first adventure, using a simple 10-step plan based on our campaign premise. So, the problem. The monsters of the Silverwood are getting bolder, threatening Oakhaven's very existence. The quest giver, Alair the village elder, needs some heroes to figure out why the beasts are so aggressive. The hook. The game starts in the Axe and Hearth. The players overhear villagers whispering about some recent attacks. Suddenly, a frantic farmer bursts in, screaming about that giant boar that's rampaging through his fields. The action starts now. The investigation here. After they deal with the boar, Alair officially hires the party. She asks them to travel to a nearby cave system where these mutated beasts seem to be coming from. The journey? This is where the hex map actually comes in. The trip here to the caves is an encounter. Maybe they get jumped by a pack of huge wolves, forcing them to use some of their resources. The dungeon, the cave system is your first dungeon. It doesn't need to be some 20-room labyrinth. 3 to 5 connected chambers is actually perfect here. The first room has to have a few weaker beasts. The second has to have a simple trap or puzzle, and Ashley will get to that later. Then there's your climax, the final chamber where the party finally finds their mini-boss, a monstrously large owl bear, clearly warped by some dark magic. This should be a tough fight.
You chose one of my favorite monsters.
Yep, I did. The big cuddly owl bear.
Yep.
Now, the clue here, after defeating the owl bear, the party finds something that points to the bigger threat. Maybe there's a strange glowing crystal shard embedded in its hide, a clue that actually connects to that abyssal behir from the premise. The reward is the party returns to Oakhaven as heroes. Elara pays them here. Boren gives them a discount for more equipment. Your party will be ecstatic about that. And their reputation grows. They get gold and XP, maybe they level up. But then what now? The adventure ends with a new question. What is this crystal? Where did it come from? Elara asked them to investigate further, pointing them to another spot on your little map. You've just linked your first adventure to a bigger campaign arc. And a quick word about balancing fights. The Dungeon Master's Guide has detailed rules for this, by the way, pages 81 to 85. But for a new DM, a good rule of thumb is to start with a number of monsters that's about equal to the number of players here. Using creatures with a challenge rating, or CR, way lower than the party's level. For level 1 characters, for instance, stick to a challenge rating of about 1/8 or 1/4. And for a boss fight, one monster with about half the party's level is usually a good starting point. And don't be afraid to fudge those numbers as well. If the fight's too easy, a few more monsters can join in. But if the fight's too hard, maybe the boss had fewer hit points than you actually thought. Your job is to make it fun, not to solve math problems. And despite what some DMs actually think, your job is not to kill your characters. It's not you versus them. You're trying to tell a story here. And that's it. A starter town and a complete first adventure, all tied to your premise. You are now 100% ready to run your first game. Now, speaking of tools, if you're actually finding this step-by-step process helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and make sure you comment any questions you have. We'll be more than happy to answer them. And just keep watching our videos. We're going to keep making videos like this that help the beginner along as well as the intermediate.
Okay, so your world has a premise, a town, an adventure. Now for my favorite part. You're going to add your own creative signature. It's time to homebrew. Homebrew is just what we call any content that you create yourself, whether it's a magical sword or a whole new world. Today we're just going to start with a monster. I know creating your own monster can feel super intimidating, like it's reserved for the dungeon masters with like 20 years experience like Tyler, but it's total myth. The Dungeon Master's Guide gives you everything you need from pages 273 to 285. The secret is to start simple and just build on what's already there. The best way to make a balanced homebrew monster is to reskin an existing one and build it around a single cool ability. Reskinning just means you take the stat block of a monster from the monster manual and change the looks. You can change maybe one or two things that it can do, but that anchors your creation to the game's existing math, which makes the balancing way easier. So let's walk through this. Our goal is a CR5 monster for Tyler's campaign, a cave-dwelling serpent that fits the mutated beast theme. We'll call it Glarefang, even though it does remind me of the basilisk. Now that I'm thinking about that kind of, but maybe that's where I got my inspiration. So step one, we're going to try the concept. The idea is a snake-like creature that doesn't just bite. It has a magical gaze that debilitates its prey, which I'm pretty sure I'm actually basing this off the basilisk. We just watched Harry Potter the other day. This is my inspiration. You can take inspiration from other things, like the basilisk.
You can.
So its unique hook is Restraining Gaze. We're aiming for a challenge rating of 5, which makes it a good boss for a party of 4 to 5 players who are around level 5. Step 2, we need to find a base creature. We need an existing CR5 monster to use as our statistical chassis. D&D Beyond's Master Filter is great for this, but you can also just flip through the monster manual. A basilisk, like I said, is a good fit for a gaze attack, but it's only a CR3. A young green dragon is a CR8, which is a little bit too spicy. A wraith is a CR5, but it's undead and incorporeal, which doesn't really scream mutant snake.
Yeah.
So let's try another way. We'll build it using the tables in the Dungeon Master's Guide as our guide. The Monster Statistics by Challenge Rating table, it's on page 274, I believe. Yes, 274. It's your new best friend. And for a CR5 monster, it suggests an armor class of 15, 131 to 145 hit points, and a plus 6 attack bonus, and damage per round of 33 to 38.
Yeah, sounds about right.
In step 3, we're going to determine the stats. Let's build our Glarefang to hit those targets. So the armor class is 15, perfect. We'll say it has tough, scaly hide like the basilisk. I'm always going to go back to this basilisk.
Yep.
Oh man. So hit points, the target is about 131 to 145 HP. It's based on hit dice and constitution. So let's make it a large creature so we can use a D10 hit die. We'll give it a solid constitution of 16 for a plus 3 modifier. We can try 16 hit dice. We're going to do a little bit of math here in a bit. But 16d10 plus 48, that's 16 times our plus 3 constitution mod.
Yeah.
It gives us an average of 16 times 5.5 plus 48, which is 136 HP. Bingo. Right on our target range. But the ability scores, it needs good strength for its bite. So let's go with 18 plus 4. We already have Constitution at 16 plus 3. Its gaze is magical, but it's not genius, so we'll give it a low intelligence, like a 4 minus 3. But a decent wisdom of 14 plus 2, dexterity 12 plus 1, and charisma 10 plus 0, that can round it out. So attacks, the Dungeon Master's Guide wants a plus 6 attack bonus, so monsters to hit is its ability modifier plus its proficiency bonus. At a challenge rate of 5, proficiency is plus 3. So for our strength-based bite, the bonus is plus 4 strength, a plus 3 proficiency, which equals plus 7. A little higher than suggested, but that's fine. For damage, the table wants 33 to 38 per round. A bite that deals 2d8 plus 4 piercing averages about 13 damage. And if it hits twice, that's only 26. Not quite there yet, but wait, we'll have our special ability. no, I'm not doing this at the drop of a hat. I did kind of plan this a little bit for this video because doing that just off the top of your head, it's impossible.
It's hard.
It's a lot of numbers, as you know. If you're having trouble following along, just kind of replay. And so step 4, create the unique abilities. This is where the monster gets personality. So we're going to start with the restraining gaze, which is an ability we gave it in the beginning. It's the main event. Let's just say when a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of Glare and can see its eyes, it must make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw. On a failure, the creature is magically restrained until the start of its next turn. How did I get DC 15? The suggested save DC for a challenge rate 5 monster is 15. Simple. Putting it all together, we can also add an effect to its bite. What if the bite physically restrains the target? Bite, melee weapon attack, +7 to hit. Hit 13, 2d8 plus 4, piercing damage. The target must succeed a DC 15 strength saving throw or be restrained. Like I said, this does take a little bit to kind of plan out and get your numbers right. Again, I did kind of go through and with Tyler.
Yeah.
We kind of, for an example for this video, we just wanted to, give you examples of some of these numbers. Now the damage per round makes more sense. The real threat here isn't just raw damage, it's control. A restrained creature has its speed dropped to 0, attacks against it have advantage, and its own attacks have disadvantage. This makes the Glarefang a terrifying controller on the battlefield. So step 5, we're going to finalize the stat block. So let's put it all together. So we have Glarefang. We have it as a large monstrosity unaligned. We have the armor class is 15, natural armor, it's scale and hide. Hit points, we have 136, which is 16d10 plus 48. We created a speed of 30 feet, and it can climb 30 feet as well. Now, let's see, what we did for strength is we did 18 plus 4. With dexterity, we did 12 plus 1. With the constitution, we did 16 plus 3. With the intelligence, we did 4 minus 3. With the wisdom, we did 14 plus 2. And charisma, we did 10 plus 0. Alright, now some of their abilities. Senses, dark vision, 60 feet. Passive perception, 12. Challenge, 5, which we had mentioned earlier. That's going to be about 1800 XP. So restraining gaze, the ability we gave it is when a creature that can see Glarefang's eyes starts its turn within 30 feet of Glarefang, the Glarefang can force it to make a DC 15 Constitution saving throw. If the saving throw fails, the creature is restrained until the start of its next turn. So actions, we have Bite, which is a melee weapon attack. It's +7 to hit. Its reach is 5 feet. Can do 1 target. The hit is 13, 2d8 plus 4. That's piercing damage. And if the target is a larger or smaller creature, it is grappled. You can escape with a DC 14. Until this grapple ends, the target is restrained and Glarefang can't bite another target. So when I was writing this out, I did make a small tweak. I changed the bite to grapple and restrain, which feels a little bit more like a real serpent. Yeah. The gaze is now a separate, more powerful crowd control tool. The creature is perfect for Tyler's campaign. It fits the theme, it's a unique challenge, and it was built using the game's own logic so we know it's balanced. Just start with a concept, find a base, or use the DMG tables, so the Dungeon Master Guide, and don't be afraid to tweak as you go. That's all it takes to make a monster that your players are going to be talking about for weeks. And like I said, that table in the book, that's how I got all the numbers. It takes a little bit to tweak, and it takes a little bit to plan, but at least that example, it kind of shows you what you can do.
Yeah. Now, that Glarefang was really terrifying, and I know earlier I said that Ashley was going to do the traps, but she really wanted to do the monster, so we're just going to switch it up a little bit, and I'm going to do the trap.
I love making monsters.
Oh, she definitely does, and that Glarefang, it was a perfect example of how one unique mechanic can make an encounter very special. That same idea applies to traps and puzzles. A good trap isn't just a gotcha moment that deals damage. It should be a mini encounter that encourages teamwork and a creative way of thinking. The Dungeon Master's Guide actually gives us great framework for this on pages 120 to 127. Let's start with traps. The worst kind of trap here is the simple pressure plate. You step on it, take damage, move on. It feels cheap, and a great trap should actually have a purpose. It should be detectable, and it should have consequences beyond just losing a few hit points. Let's design a trap for that Glare-Fang's lair. Now, an example of a trap is the Echoing Snare. Now, the purpose of this trap isn't just meant to kill intruders. It's an alarm system for the Glare-Fang, meant to disorient its prey before they actually fight. Now, the detection here is a character with a passive perception of 15 or higher might notice the floor in one of the areas covered in a fine shimmering dust. A DC 15 investigations check would reveal a faint tripwire that's hidden in the dust. The trigger is that it triggers when 2 or more people step on the dusty area at once. This rewards a careful party that sends a scout ahead. Now, when it's sprung, the dust flies into the air and lets out a deafening shriek. Everyone in a 20-foot area has to make a DC 13 Constitution save. On a fail, they take 2d6 thunder damage and are deafened for a minute. And that's a really long time in a fight. That's almost the whole encounter. On a success, half damage and no deafness. Most importantly, the sound automatically alerts the Glare-Fang in this area in the next room. A rogue could disarm it with a DC 15 dexterity check using Thieves' Tools, or a clever party might use a spell like Gust or Wind to blow the dust away from a distance, though that might still make it make noise. See? This trap is way more interesting than a simple pitfall. It creates tension, rewards smart play, and directly impacts the next encounter. Now, the Glare-Fang isn't surprised.
That would be me. I would be all over that tripwire. And I'm usually the one making the character to actually, check for... I can't roll to save my life.
Yeah, you're usually the rogue that stumbles into the trap.
I'm the rogue
She
that's
really
meant
is.
to find the tripwire for this pressure plate and save the party, but usually I end up rolling, between a 1 and a 5.
And then
And
tripping
I
on the
just-
tripwire.
Yeah, or I kill... And again, just a little bit of a story. I happen to kill teammates quite often. So with playing with me, it's more of like a comedy than it is like a horror. But yeah, you can continue with the traps and the puzzles though.
Now, for puzzles challenge the players, not just their character sheets. The biggest mistake that DMs make here is that they make puzzles that are so challenging that people just end up getting frustrated. A good puzzle should have clear rules and more than one possible solution, letting different characters shine. A great simple format for a puzzle is a skill challenge. The party needs to get a certain number of successes, say 4, before they actually get 3 failures. Each attempt involves a player describing what they're doing and making a relevant ability check. Now let's make an example here. The Beast Rune Door. In Glare-Fang's lair, the party finds a massive stone door covered in glowing runes. A riddle is covered in the center of the room. The setup, the riddle reads, I have no voice, but I can call the hunter. I have no limbs, but I can bind the strong. I have no mind, but my stare can stop a heart. What am I? The answer, obviously, is fear, or something about the Glare-Fang's gaze. But shouting the answer doesn't work. They have to deactivate the runes in the right sequence. The challenge here? This is a DC 14 group skill challenge. The party needs 4 successes or before they hit 3 failures in order to open this door. The potential solution is, say, an intelligence, arcana, or religion check. A player could try to decipher the runes. A success reveals that some are for compulsion magic and others are for beasts. They need to press only the compulsion ones. Whereas a wisdom insight might say a player might try to sense the emotional magic left on the door. A success gives them a flash of insight. The creature was terrified of being seen. This points them towards runes that symbolize darkness or blindness. Now, on a charisma save, or persuasion or intimidation, this is a weird one. But I love it when players get creative. A bard could argue that they try to persuade the door's magic with a soothing chant. As a DM, I totally allow that.
That actually reminds me, by the way, of Critical Role. If anyone watches Critical Role,
we do.
Scanlan, the bard,
yeah,
he would do that. That would be
he'd
his
totally
thing.
try to do that. But in an intelligence check or investigation, a player might check the area for clues, finding scratch marks near the certain runes where something else failed to open it, showing them which ones not to press.
That would be my way to go.
Yeah, and with Critical Role, funny story, we're on season 1 of episode 7, and we just found out season 1 actually has 115 episodes. This is going to take us years to catch up to that.
It took 2 years for them to actually go through the damn thing.
Yeah. Now, with failures, pressing the wrong rune could zap a character for 1d6 psychic damage. A failed check could cause the runes to flare, imposing disadvantage on the next check. A third failure might reset the trap from the last room or summon a hostile spirit. This puzzle makes the whole party work together. The wizard uses arcana, the cleric uses religion, the rogue uses investigation, and the bard gets to be creative. It's interactive, it's tied to the dungeon's theme, and it feels like a real accomplishment, not just a locked door that's waiting for a key. And there you have it. From one paragraph idea to a living starter town, a complete first adventure, and even your own custom monster, trap, and puzzle. We've taken this huge daunting task and broken it down into small, manageable, and most importantly, fun steps.
So let's recap. You started with a core premise to give your campaign a purpose. You held a session 0 to build a team, get on the same page, and you created a living starter town with just a handful of NPCs and a bounty board. You designed your first adventure with a simple framework that connects to your big story, and you dipped your toes into homebrewing to add your own personal flair to the game.
The biggest takeaway should be this. You have permission to start small. You do not need a 300-page word Bible to run your first campaign. You just need what's right in front of the players. A town, problem, and a direction. The world will grow around it, session by session, as you all explore it together. You're going to make mistakes, you'll forget a rule, a monster will be too hard, or it'll be too easy. A player will do something you never saw coming.
Like kill their teammates multiple times.
She threw a flame ball, and she rolled a natural 1, and she actually ended up blowing her teammate to pieces. It was a pretty funny story. But embrace it. That's the magic of D&D.
You aren't playing against your friends either. You're their guide, their storyteller, and their biggest fan. Your job is to create cool problems and cheer them on as they find even cooler solutions. The frameworks we've given you today are just scaffolding. They're here to support you while you find your confidence.
We've got a question for you. What's the premise for the campaign you want to run? Drop it in the comments below. We would actually genuinely love to read your ideas. Seeing the creativity in this community has always been inspiring for us.
And if you enjoyed this guide and want more deep dives into being a dungeon master, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. That way you don't miss any of our next videos. And we're planning a follow-up on what to do when your players completely derail your plot, because trust us, it's going to happen. And with his family, it happens more times than it doesn't.
And thanks for hanging out with us. Take a deep breath. You've got this. Now go get your friends, grab your dice, and tell that great story and happy adventuring.